My name is Josephine Carter. I'm 34 years old, and the strangest thing about my life is that I disappeared once and nobody noticed, not for a day, not for a week, not even for a year. And I wish I could tell you that realization came slowly, like something you can prepare for, but it didn't hit me all at once in the quietest moment imaginable, a Tuesday night, a dim kitchen light, and a pot of overcooked pasta. I was 15 years old. 3 weeks earlier, we had buried my father, closed casket, cold morning. People whispering words like strong and brave, while avoiding eye contact after the funeral. Everyone went back to their lives except us, except me. My mother, Elaine Carter, didn't cry the way people expect mothers to cry. She didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She just stopped. She stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, stopped noticing anything at all. She would sit on the couch for hours staring at a television that wasn't even turned on, like she was watching something only she could see. My younger sister, Ava, was 11 that night. She stood in the kitchen doorway, arms wrapped around her stomach. "I'm hungry," she said softly, not complaining, not demanding, just stating a fact. I remember standing there waiting for my mother to move, to respond, to acknowledge her own child. But she didn't. Ava looked at me instead, and in that moment something shifted. I wasn't just the older sister anymore. I became something else. I opened the pantry, found a box of macaroni, read the instructions 3 times because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The water boiled too fast. The cheese packet tore. Wrong powder spilled across the counter and stuck to my fingers. I made 3 bowls, one for Ava, one for Mom, one for me. Ava sat at the table and ate quietly, like she didn't want to take up space. I carried a bowl into the living room. "Mom," I said softly. She didn't look at me. I placed it in her hands anyway. After a few seconds, she took a bite. Then she said something I will never forget. "Finally, someone in this house is useful." That was it. No thank you, no are you okay, no acknowledgement that I had just buried my father too. Just useful. I stood there waiting for something, anything else, but nothing came, so I turned around, walked back into the kitchen, washed the dishes, wiped the counters, noticed the sponge smelled like mildew, and I remember thinking very clearly, we need a new sponge. Not I'm grieving, not I'm scared, not I'm just a kid, a sponge. That's when it started, not with a decision, not with a conversation, but with a quiet understanding. If I didn't hold everything together, no one would. And once you become the person who holds everything together, nobody ever asks if you're breaking. And the worst part isn't the responsibility, it's what comes after, the way it slowly becomes expected, the way people stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a solution. And I didn't know it yet, standing there at that sink at 15 years old with dishwater dripping from my hands. But that was the exact moment my life stopped being mine and started belonging to everyone else. 17 years passed after that night, and not once did I question the role I had stepped into, because when something becomes your identity, you don't stop to ask if it's fair, you just keep going. And that's exactly what I did. I kept going. I became the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who always shows up no matter what. And by the time I turned 32, my life looked stable from the outside. I had a full-time job as an operations coordinator at a mid-sized logistics company in Ohio. I paid my own rent. I handled my bills on time. I looked like someone who had everything under control, but what nobody saw was that I was living 2 lives, one that paid me and one that drained me, and the second one took everything. Every Sunday night, I would sit on my couch with my laptop open and my calendar pulled up, color-coded, like my life depended on it. Blue was for my mother, doctor appointments, prescription pickups, grocery runs. Green was for my sister Ava's kids' school pickups, babysitting nights, last minute emergencies. Yellow was for family events, birthdays, holidays, dinners that I planned, cooked, and cleaned up after. And when I scrolled through that calendar, something always felt off. Not one single entry had my name on it. Not one, not a single dinner for myself, not a single plan that belonged to me. I had tried 4 times that year to meet an old college friend for lunch. 4 times I canceled twice because Ava texted me last minute asking if I could watch the kids, once because my mother said she wasn't feeling well and needed me there, and once because my nephew got sick at daycare and Ava couldn't leave work. Every time I said yes automatically without thinking, because that's what I had trained myself to do. My phone buzzed one night while I was looking at my schedule. It was, "Ava, can you take the kids this weekend? Drew's traveling." I typed sure and hit send. She didn't reply. No thank you, no acknowledgement, just silence, like my yes was expected, like it didn't deserve a response. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, and for the first time a thought crossed my mind that made my chest feel tight. When was the last time anyone in my family asked me how I was? Not what I could do, not what they needed, just how I was. I couldn't answer that. I scrolled back through my messages weeks, months. It was all the same pattern: requests, reminders, logistics, but nothing human, nothing real. It was like I existed only when there was something to fix, and the realization didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly, like a quiet ache you try to ignore until it becomes impossible to miss. Then March 18th came, my birthday. I woke up that morning and the first thing I did was check my phone. Nothing, no texts, no missed calls, no notifications. I told myself it was early, people forget, they'll remember later. I got ready for work, checked again. Nothing. By lunchtime, I was refreshing my messages without even realizing it. Still nothing, not from my mother, not from Ava, not from anyone. I drove home that evening in silence, and instead of going straight to my apartment, I stopped at a small bakery on the corner, bought myself a single slice of chocolate cake, and sat in my car in the parking lot eating it alone, staring at nothing, telling myself it didn't matter, telling myself I was being dramatic, telling myself this was normal. At 7:42 p.m. my phone rang. Mom. For a second my chest lifted. Maybe she remembered. Maybe this was the moment. I answered. Josephine, I need you to pick up my medication. The pharmacy closes in 20 minutes. I gripped the steering wheel tighter than I meant to. It's my birthday today, Mom. There was a pause, short, empty, not the kind filled with guilt, just the kind filled with inconvenience. Oh, right, happy birthday. Anyway, can you still go? They're about to close. And just like that, the moment was gone, replaced by the same expectation, the same role, the same script I had been following for years. I drove to the pharmacy, picked up her prescription, drove to her house, handed her the bag. She said, "Thanks, honey," and closed the door.
She didn't invite me in.
Didn't ask me how my day was. Didn't mention my birthday again. I sat in my car outside her house, engine running, headlights pointed at the garage door, and something inside me, something that had been holding everything together for years, quietly snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, just a clean, silent break. And for the first time in my life, I thought, what would happen if I stopped? Not slowly, not temporarily. Completely. What would happen if I disappeared? And more importantly, would anyone even notice? I didn't leave the next day. I didn't pack my bags or quit my job or disappear overnight, because that's not who I was. I was the kind of person who needed proof, not assumptions. I needed to know if what I was feeling was real, or if I was just exhausted and overthinking everything. So instead of leaving, I decided to run and experiment, something small, something simple, something no one would even notice. At least that's what I thought. The next morning, I did something I had never done before. I reached out first, not because someone needed something, not because there was a problem to solve, but just as a person, just as Josephine. March 19th, I texted my mother, "Want to have lunch this weekend? Just us, no errands, no appointments, just lunch." I stared at the message for a few seconds before hitting send. It felt strange, almost uncomfortable, like I was stepping out of a role I had been stuck in for years. No reply. I told myself she was busy. Maybe she didn't see it. 3 days later, I texted Ava, "Hey, how are you doing? We haven't talked in a while." No mention of the kids, no offers to help, just a normal message like sisters send each other. She replied 6 hours later, "Can't, kids are crazy." That was it. No "how are you back?" no follow-up, just a wall. A week later, I texted Drew, my brother-in-law, "How's the new project going at work?" I had heard from Ava that he was traveling more, so I figured I'd just check in. Message seen. No response. That should have been enough for me to understand what was happening, but it wasn't, because part of me still believed there had to be a reason. Maybe timing was off, maybe life was just busy, maybe I hadn't tried enough. So I kept going. March turned into April, April into May, and every few days I sent a message, not asking for anything, not offering anything, just reaching out like a normal human being. "Want to catch a movie sometime? How's Mason feeling after his cold? Mom, I tried that recipe you used to make, it turned out pretty good. Wish you were here to try it. Ava, I miss you. Let's do something, just us." Message after message after message. Most of them were opened. Almost none of them were answered. At first, I didn't think much of it. I told myself people forget to reply, it happens, but then I started noticing the pattern. They would read my messages, and then hours later send me something completely unrelated. "Can you pick up the kids tomorrow? Mom needs you to take her to the doctor Saturday. Don't forget Oliver's birthday gift." They weren't ignoring their phones. They were ignoring me. That's when I started taking screenshots, not because I had a plan, not because I wanted to prove anything to them, but because I needed to prove it to myself. I needed to see it laid out clearly, so I wouldn't gaslight myself into thinking I was imagining it. By the end of May, I had dozens of screenshots. By July, I had over 100. By August, I stopped counting, and then one night I sat on my bed with my laptop open and went through all of them one by one, organizing them by name, by date, by type of message, and when I finally added them up, the number hit me harder than I expected. 214 messages. I had reached out 214 times. Not once asking for help. Not once asking for anything. Just trying to be seen. And out of those 214 messages, only 12 had been answered. Most of those replies were one-word responses. None of them asked how I was. None of them continued a conversation. None of them treated me like a person. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling something I hadn't felt before, not sadness, not anger, something colder, something clearer.
Certainty.
This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't bad timing. This was who I was to them. Convenient when needed, invisible when not. That night, I opened a job listing website not because I had planned to leave, but because I needed to see if leaving was even possible, and that's when I saw it: operations manager position, Portland, Oregon, competitive salary, full benefits, relocation support. I had never been to Portland. I didn't know anyone there. It was over 2,000 miles away from everything I had ever known, and for the first time in a long time, that distance
Didn't scare me.
it felt like freedom. I stared at the listing for a long time, my cursor hovering over the apply button, while my mind tried to talk me out of it. You can't just leave. What about mom? What about Ava? What about the kids? What about everything you've built here? But then another thought pushed through, quieter but stronger. What about you? I clicked apply. It took less than 20 minutes to submit my resume and close my laptop, but something about that moment felt bigger than it should have, like I had just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And for the first time in my life, I didn't tell anyone. Not my mother, not my sister, not even myself out loud. Because deep down, I already knew. If I left, they wouldn't stop me. They wouldn't chase me. And the only question that really mattered now was, would they even notice I was gone? The job offer came faster than I expected. Portland. Operations manager. Full benefits. Start date in 6 weeks. When I read the email, I didn't feel excited. I didn't feel scared either. I just felt calm, like something inside me had finally stopped screaming after years of being ignored. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even smile right away. I just sat there staring at my laptop in my small Ohio apartment, listening to the sound of my refrigerator humming in the background, thinking one thing over and over. If I leave, nothing changes here. And that thought didn't hurt the way it should have. It just felt true. The next 2 weeks were strange. I went to work like normal. I cooked dinner for my mother twice. I picked up my sister Ava's kids from school. I answered calls. I said yes. I said sure. I said I'll handle it. But inside, I was already gone. Like I was watching my own life from a distance. One evening, Ava texted me last minute again. Can you take the kids Friday and Saturday? We need a break. I stared at the message longer than usual. Something in me wanted to say no. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just no. But years of conditioning are hard to break. So, I typed sure. And then I stopped. My finger hovered over send. And for the first time ever, I deleted it. I didn't reply. I put my phone face down and just sat there. Nothing exploded. No one showed up at my door. No emergency happened. The world didn't collapse. That silence was louder than anything else. Because I realized something terrifying. They didn't need me urgently. They just expected me. That was the difference. The next morning, my mother called. I didn't pick up. She called again. And again. By the 4th call, she left a voicemail. Josephine, why aren't you answering? I need you to pick up my prescription today. No, are you okay? No, did something happen? Just instructions. Just usage. That night, I opened my laptop and started packing my life into boxes. Not my emotional life, my physical one.
Clothes. Books.
Old photos. Things I didn't even remember owning. Everything I packed felt lighter than it should have. Like I wasn't losing anything. Like I was removing weight I didn't know I was carrying. 2 days before I left, Ava showed up at my apartment unannounced. She didn't knock gently. She knocked like she was entitled to my time. When I opened the door, she was standing there holding her phone. Why aren't you answering me? She asked immediately. I didn't answer right away. Because for the first time, I was noticing something strange. She wasn't worried. She wasn't concerned. She was inconvenienced. I've been busy, I said finally. You've been ignoring me, she snapped. Mom needs her prescription, and I had no one else to. There it was. Always the same sentence structure. Always the same ending. I had no one else. I looked at her for a long moment, and something inside me shifted. I'm leaving, I said quietly. She blinked. Leaving where? Portland. For a second, she actually laughed like I had told a joke. You can't just leave. What about Mom? What about the kids? And there it was again. Not what about you. Never what about you. I felt something rise in my chest, but it wasn't anger. It was clarity. I've been here my whole life, I said. You just didn't notice when I was drowning in it. Her face changed slightly. Not guilt. Not understanding. Annoyance. Like I was making something simple complicated. You're being dramatic, Josephine, she said. That word.
Dramatic.
The same word used every time I had a feeling that required effort from someone else. I didn't argue. I just nodded. Because arguing only works when the other person is listening. And she wasn't. The day I left Ohio, it was early morning. Gray sky. Quiet streets. The kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. I loaded my car alone. No goodbye party. No emotional farewell. No one came. I waited 10 minutes before I left the driveway. Just in case. No one came. As I drove away, I didn't look back at the house. Because I already knew what I would see. Nothing. Not a wave. Not a call. Not even a light turning on in a window. Just a place I had once lived in continuing without me. And somewhere on that highway, it hit me fully for the first time. I wasn't leaving a family. I was leaving a role they had assigned me. And roles don't chase you when you quit them. People do. But only if they ever saw you as one. The first month in Portland felt like stepping into someone else's life and realizing it fit better than the one I left behind. I rented a small apartment on the second floor of a quiet building with a maple tree outside the window. Nothing fancy.
Just mine.
For the first time in years, my schedule didn't belong to anyone else. No school pickups. No emergency calls. No, can you just help with this one thing? At first, I kept waiting for the interruption. My phone would ring, and my chest would tighten out of habit. But it never did. Not from my mother. Not from Ava. Not from anyone. Silence has a strange way of exposing truth. At first, it feels peaceful. Then it starts to feel intentional. Thanksgiving came first. In Ohio, I would have been the one organizing everything, cooking, planning, coordinating, cleaning. But in Portland, I sat alone with a simple meal from a grocery store. And I realized something that made my stomach twist a little. No one had called to ask where I was. Not once. Not even a happy Thanksgiving. That wasn't forgetfulness. That was absence of consideration.
2 months passed like that.
Quiet. Structured.
Mine.
I started sleeping better, eating better, thinking clearer. Then one afternoon, I met someone at work, Lena Brooks, a senior project lead. She wasn't loud or overly friendly, just present. One day, she asked me a simple question while we were walking out of the office. Do you ever feel like your life is finally yours now? I stopped walking, because I realized I had never been asked that before. Not once. And I answered honestly, yes. That was the first time I said it out loud. Back in Ohio, life didn't stop. It just adjusted around my absence. At first, Ava tried to handle everything alone. Then she realized how many things I actually carried without anyone noticing. School pickups, doctor appointments, last-minute babysitting, emergency runs. The invisible structure I had built for years collapsed quietly. Not dramatically, just inconveniently. And inconvenience is what finally gets attention. The first real crack came when Ava called me after nearly 6 weeks of silence. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Her voice wasn't angry this time. It was tired. Josephine, I didn't realize how much you actually did. That sentence sat heavy in the air. Not an apology. Not accountability. Just recognition after loss. But it was too late for recognition. Because recognition without change is just observation. And observation doesn't rebuild anything. My mother reacted differently. She didn't call me for weeks. Instead, she called everyone else. Complaining. Explaining. rewriting the story. She just left, she told people. No explanation. But people remembered. Small things always slip through rewritten stories. Like how I was always the one who showed up. Always the one who handled everything. Always the one who never complained. And slowly, cracks formed in her version of reality. Then came the moment that changed everything. Ava showed up in Portland, unannounced, standing outside my apartment door, like she still had access to my life. When I opened it, she looked different. Not physically, emotionally, tired in a way I had never seen before. You really left, she said quietly. I didn't respond, because there was nothing left to explain. She stepped inside without waiting. I didn't think you'd actually do it, she said. That sentence hit harder than anger ever could, because it confirmed everything. They never thought I would leave. Not because they valued me, but because they assumed I wouldn't, that I couldn't, that I didn't have the right to. Ava sat down slowly. I don't know how to do this without you, she admitted. And for a moment, I almost felt something soften. Almost. But then I remembered something important. I wasn't responsible for teaching adults how to function without exploiting someone else. I didn't disappear, I said calmly. You just stopped noticing I was a person while I was still there. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable.
Real.
She looked down. For the first time, no defense. No excuses. Just awareness. Back in Ohio, my mother finally experienced what she had unknowingly built. A life where everything ran because someone else carried it. And now that person was gone. Appointments were missed. Things were forgotten. Holidays became chaotic instead of organized. And slowly, the identity she had built, of being held together, started collapsing. Not because I destroyed it, but because I was never the foundation she thought I was. I was the support beam she never saw. One evening, I got a message from her. No manipulation this time. No guilt. Just words. I didn't realize how much of my life was you.
I stared at it for a long time.
Because that was the closest thing to truth she had ever said. But truth alone doesn't fix damage. It only reveals it. I didn't reply immediately, because I needed to understand something first. Was this regret, or just discomfort with consequences? Months passed. Slowly, something shifted. Ava started therapy. My mother started adjusting. Drew, my brother-in-law, was the only one who never blamed me. He sent occasional updates. Not requests. Not demands. Just reality. The kids are growing. They ask about you. No pressure. Just truth. And for the first time, I responded without hesitation. Because honesty without expectation is the only kind that doesn't feel like obligation. A year after I left, I stood in my kitchen in Portland making dinner. Nothing dramatic. Just normal life. And I realized something simple but powerful. They didn't lose me the day I left. They lost me years before when they stopped seeing me as someone who could leave. Revenge was never my goal. But truth has its own consequences. And sometimes, the most powerful ending isn't destruction. It's distance. It's silence. It's finally being seen after you've already chosen yourself. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.